Welcome to the English Hour on ANN Television. Our guest today is Ahlam Akram. She is Palestinian and she is a campaigner for women's rights. Welcome to this week's episode. Our guest is Ahlam Akram, a Palestinian, a Briton, and a campaigner for women's rights. Ahlam, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you for the opportunity and the invitation, but I'd like to correct you. I am a British of Palestinian origin, and I'm very proud of both heritages.
Well, bless your heart. Before we start talking, we'll just watch a short package which summarizes today's topics, which will be, of course, the Middle East, but women's rights and the role of religions in the region. Ahlam's work is directed at issues seen as an obstacle to the social progress of women. Her concerns include everything from female genital mutilation to honor killings. She fights to expose cultural taboos and free women from the religious shackles that constrain them. Ahlam's objective is to achieve a social climate that can offer all Arab women, regardless of religion or social economic position, a fair and equal society in which to prosper. In the aftermath of the recent conflict between Israel and Palestine, Ahlam's other work to promote peace is more relevant now than ever. Her views are those of a pragmatist. She believes that the only way to achieve peace is to establish a climate of mutual respect. In order to accomplish such concord, Ahlam believes that the reconciliation of the Arab and Jewish people must be founded on the recognition of shared pain and hardship. She has equal compassion for both peoples. Ahlam has not shied away from denouncing the way in which religion has radically divided societies in today's world, ostracizing minorities and segregating communities. Ahlam calls for the recognition of our equality as human beings, claiming only then that we will have the right foundation for democracy. She believes passionately that religious laws are not compatible with democracy, not merely because they are outdated, but because of what she regards as the significant absence of equality and justice in the religious attitude to women. Ahlam believes above all else that human dignity is paramount. Ahlam, thank you again for being with us. Tell me, I mean, you are, of course, you made clear you're very much a Briton, and we're really, it's great that you are, but your roots, you were born in the West Bank.
Of course, I would never deny that, and I'm always proud of that part of me. To be honest with you, through my both experiences, that's what made me the woman I am today, where I was raised up in the warm Arabic culture, which I still treasure, but again, I could have seen the negative aspects of that culture, which was remedied while I am living in the UK and made me the woman I am today. I'm not afraid.
You were quite a campaigner even as a young woman. You had to fight to get your father to agree to. You were a very traditional family, and I heard somewhere that you went on hunger strike to campaign so you could go to university.
That's very clever of you, William. The truth is, I come from a simple, ordinary, middle-class background from a town in Nablus, and there were many. I saw the world from that angle at that time, and I had to struggle a lot more than any other girl from another background. And I used hunger strike as a weapon to get through what I wanted. Right from the beginning, I realized that my education is my way of independence. Not in the independence the way people look at it, or they think freedom and I don't know what. No, I just wanted to be a human being, respected and supporting myself. I always throw the argument to my father that what happens if I get married and something happens to my husband? How am I going to support myself financially? So I always played that role, and I used religion, positive aspects of religion, to get through to him. But still, it wasn't as easy. It was hunger strike after one after the other.
You must have been a very difficult daughter.
Well, if you say so.
But what an achievement. That's really quite something. And you went to university in Cairo.
In Alexandria.
Yeah,
In
wow.
Alexandria. I went at the time where very few girls who would go and break that. That experience taught me a lot about Egypt and Egyptian people. They're one of the kindest people on earth.
Right.
From my experience, I would never forget the telephone calls I received after 67 where families I never knew volunteering, calling me to help and support and asking me to come and stay with them and if I need anything. So I carry this and I treasure it wherever I am. This is the Egyptian people, the kind, humble, fantastic people I used to know.
And you have campaigned very actively for Palestinian rights at one stage. You were very much involved in the peace process. In some senses, you got a little disheartened, would that be fair to say, or is that unfair? I mean, we were living through awful times. Yeah.
It is. I put my heart in that because through my experience traveling back and forth and comparing always my experience and evolving and all of this with my family experience.
Your campaigning for Middle East peace, you have had some setbacks in the sense that it is obviously a central core issue for all Palestinians, but you've had some frustrations.
It's a central core issue for our international diplomacy. There has been a huge misjudges that befallen onto Palestinian, and without rectifying that in a manner that is accepted for both to return, particularly to restore dignity and equality to Palestinian people compared to their other Israelis, you're going to always have that in the heart and conscience of any person. So yes, I put my heart in there, and based on our equality as a human being, based on our suffering, and to move forward and to build a better future for all our children. The setbacks was when I realized, I mean, through some organization, Jewish organization, I've been always controversial. I didn't want to work with Palestinian organizations because they think I am too much progressive or forward or whatever. So I worked with like-minded Jewish organizations such as Jews for Justice for Palestinians, and especially the bereaved parents, Friends of the Bereaved Parents, which I thought is the most humane voice. But I was disheartened when I found out that some of the Jewish people, they still don't want to acknowledge Palestinian suffering. Besides, I found that on both, I am not winning neither with Palestinians nor with with the Jews. In many cases, there are few who believe in what I believed in, and I didn't have enough support from the Palestinians over here, and from the political establishment either. So, in the process, it made me realize that absence of women voices in the conflict, that what is making it worse and worse. Like for instance, you have Nurit Bilid al-Hanan, who was the first woman who started the Bereaved Parents. You read her articles about her daughter, you read how she feels, and you cannot, as a human being, you cannot but melt from within. And that's what really transformed me and made me, but unfortunately, we are still far away from reaching a peace settlement or peace agreement accepted.
It seems there is less understanding of the other. Certainly, Israeli society, oddly, this Gaza war has polarized Israeli society.
Definitely.
And they've become more reactionary. And then, of course, Gazans have themselves become, well, Palestinians in general have become angrier given the recent events. So it's very disheartening altogether.
William, put yourself in the place of that refugee, of that young kid who sees his father being killed, who sees his home being destroyed, who sees he has no life of tomorrow, while at the same time there is a television, screen somewhere in a corner. He sees American kid, or my kid, or your kid. What do you think he is going to feel? How is he going to react? What kind of perception he is going to have about this world. So what the Palestinians in particular have gone through is so hard. That what make peace a lot more difficult. And don't forget the role of religious clerics in turning that political conflict into completely religious.
Okay, well, I was going to come on to that religious issue, but and I also want to talk about your work on women's rights. You have strong views on religions. You have strong views on women's rights. Let's hold the religious issue to one side. I don't know if we should hold it for the end, but we will.
Okay.
And we'll talk about, because what you have done as a Palestinian, as a Briton, as a campaigner, you've started an organization. And it's an organization that campaigns particularly, Basira.
Yes, Basira.
Campaigns particularly for the rights of women. Tell us a little bit about why. Well, I understand why, but where you're going with this. What is your objective?
First of all, I'd like to speak about Basira. Basira is a non-governmental organization where it is funded by little things from here and there, but I'm determined to make it work. Basira stands completely for women's rights as a human rights, as like any other woman, because if you look at it, our aspirations as a human being and as women in particular is all the same wherever you are in this part of the world. What do you want? You want security, you want a future, especially for your kids. So this is a common factor that will connect us as a woman wherever we are in this world. Number two, in my views, that women are much more capable than men in compromising in conflicts, because unfortunately, and don't get me wrong, I love my son, I love my father, my brother, my husband, I love men, but women are governed by ego much more than compromise, while women are governed by...
Men are governed by ego more than compromise.
Men govern this way, while women, we are much more able and capable of compromise, because we are governed by our instinct of protection, and especially for our loved ones. That's number two. Number three is that we are living in a world that doesn't have any more borders. You know, insecurity can reach while we're here any other part of the world, and without going back to our common humanity and sharing resources and supporting one another, we will always have insecurity coming from one part or the other. That's what prompted me to bring Basira. My care, I live in this country. I'm a privileged woman, and I thank God thousands of times for that. But at the same time, from a sense of responsibility towards this society and towards the part of the world where I am connected by my emotion and my memories, beautiful memories, this is what prompted me to bring Basira. Because I believe, we in Basira, not only me, the group that's supporting me, we believe that justice for women is the only way that will change the cultural aspect. We need to change cultural perception for the Western world, for ourselves, for our women. And without that justice coming to that, we can never build democracy, real democracy.
That's really passionate. But then justice, what does justice mean? If you talk about justice in terms of the Middle East peace process, you're talking about some sort of retribution where you mean, when you say justice for women, you're talking about what? You're talking about the equality, really.
I'm talking about equality. I'm talking about non-discriminatory society between men and women, gender equality. I'm talking about the justice for women, which is where they face injustice not only through the culture but through the legal system. The family status law in all the Arab countries and Muslim countries is connected somehow with the Sharia law, the religious laws. And this is where Israel have succeeded and have, by separation of state and religion. Although,
also, no?
We have never separated. We have never. Although still the Israeli democracy is a black democracy because it still differentiate between an Israeli of Jewish origin or an Arab origin. But still, if you compare it with other democracies in the other world, of course they are a joke because they are still hiding behind religious fiqh and so on to keep injustices for women embedded in the family status law. I'll give you an example.
In Israel, you're talking about that.
No. I'm talking about the Arab world. In Israel, Israel succeeded in separating the religion and
Well, up to a point, there's a move in Israeli society now to legalize multiple marriages, for instance.
well, good for them. They will good for them because they are not. Look, religious clerics in all. I mean, particularly fundamental and radical idiots, I call them. They don't differ. They're all the same. You know, the only difference is that in certain societies they succeeded in silencing them by putting democracy, by establishing democracy in all aspects of life. If Israel tomorrow change its law to connect it with this religious thing, fantastic. It will be the first step for its deterioration. You know,
But,
so
I mean, but nonetheless, I mean, essentially, what you see, you believe in a society. I mean, it seems to me that Palestinian women are possibly in the Arab world are the most liberated, at least those that I meet, are the most outspoken, the most liberated in the Middle East. I would say that without question. Maybe I've been meeting particular kinds
you meet a certain particular. If I were in the womb, if I didn't fight for what I am, you would never meet me. Okay, you would have never met me. And unfortunately, women from my background, they are almost 80% of the society. Don't be fooled. We are a very class society, and those who are privileged enough to come and you meet them, believe me, 80% of these women don't want to go back. They don't want to go back, although they are still the most privileged.
Tell me something, I mean, just about the role of women. It just that strikes me as a curiosity, but there has been in Palestine, I know we don't necessarily concentrate only on Palestine, but in Palestinian society, it strikes me that when I was a boy, then Gaza, the women's rights were very free. Women were wearing bikinis on the beach. Women were very, very liberated in Gaza. On the West Bank, women were wearing headscarves. They were very, very much less free. Now, it's done kind of a switch, whereby in Gaza, women are much more constrained, and on the West Bank, women are much more liberal, very liberal, very.
Not really. You don't. No? First of all, you're talking about an era 50 years ago or more, okay, where we ourselves didn't have this revolution in communications and to start understanding and reading. What women are facing in Gaza through Hamas rule is a kind of policy into Islamization of society. I don't mind Islamization of society. I don't care for a headscarf, okay? And they call it the Islamic awakening. My question is that why is this Islamic awakening only came to cover up women? Why this Islamic awakening did not look at the injustices in the legal system, in the family status law? The injustices such as the right for a man to marry for women, the right of the man to take custody of his children at the age of 7, the right of the man to become a guardian of a woman for the rest of her life, the right, I mean, there are so many things. Why they did not rectify these things? Covering a woman with, as I said, with a head, what annoys me most, and I cannot tolerate it, is a woman with a niqab. But again, in both cases, why don't we really open a debate, a positive debate about whether hijab is an obligatory or not? Because there are contradicting views over here. And why is it that when Zaki Badawi, who was one of the head Muslim leaders in
I
the
remember him
UK.
well, yeah.
Exactly. Why? What prompted him to say that if you are going to face anything, remove the hijab? Because necessities would allow you to stop prohibition. You know, because you are in a situation where why would you be marked up and subject yourself to some kind of hurt or something? What difference does it make with a
So do you
headscarf
believe,
or
I
not?
mean, in that context, would you believe in the French system where they have integration and where, for instance, the
Absolutely.
hijab is forbidden, I believe? Or at
It's
least
niqab which is forbidden.
niqab is forbidden.
Niqab
Fine.
is forbidden, and
Yeah.
I hope all the other countries in Europe will take with it. Because how would I know who is underneath that niqab? How could I? In fact, in the past few years, there has been other suicidal things happened in Iraq took place while men were covered while women were covered or men covered in a niqab, and they did such a thing.
Yes,
The
yes.
element of security should supersede.
So the niqab, I mean, it's interesting. Here we have women who wear the niqab. Sometimes English women who marry a Muslim will wear the niqab because they will go to the extreme in order to display the fact that they have converted to Islam. And I have heard some women who actually challenge other Muslim women who do not wear the niqab, saying, you are not Muslim. But that's quite wrong, of course.
Who gave her such a right to feel superior?
Yeah.
Who gave her? Well, how could she think that I am not a decent human being just because I'm not putting that piece of cloth on my head? Who cares? What's inside our hearts and our conscience is the most important thing. And at the moment, we are lost, whether here or there, with all religions, to be honest.
Actually, what is more, forgive me, but in a
Yeah.
sense, what is more disturbing is the endorsement of violence by all religions. I mean, we
Definitely.
don't have one major religious leader who is a pacifist other than possibly the Dalai Lama, and who speaks out as for peace. And we have a world in which ISIS is coming forward, claiming to represent a religious viewpoint. And you have people in the West who, pastors who burn Qurans and who are extremists too. It's not, extremism is not unique to, and certainly in Israel, you'll have religious leaders who speak quite aggressively and unfeelingly. We have a situation where religion is becoming part of the problem rather than part of the solution.
The most unfortunate thing, yes, and unless a human being go back, and we need to open all kind of debates. I mean, but the most important action the governments should take is separation of state and religion. The debate can follow, because look, we are talking about thousands of years ago. We are talking about things which in those days has not been written right. I mean, miracles. Look at the TV today. Look at Skype. Look at you put yourself in a plane and within a few hours you are in a different country. It's a different world we're living in. So things which I cannot prove it, right or wrong, fine. You want to keep your faith, by all means. You have my respect. But as long as you tolerate my faith as well, whatever it is, okay? This is one of the biggest dilemma the Arab world is facing, in the sense of minorities with it who has lived for thousands of years in the same place where I lived. Citizenship is absent in that part of the world. Just because he is a Christian, you are a Muslim, he is I don't know what. How could we live together if we are going to keep these differences between us? Today, the land is for everybody. And religion is for one God whom we don't know. And if I believe, which I believe, that this entity has to bring positive in my life, in my future, in the future of the people I love. Other than that, we're going to be.
Then, I mean, you're talking of, there are cultural issues that cause this segregation. You can't entirely blame religion. I mean, nations like Syria, for example, call itself the Syrian Arab Republic, whereas it has 10-20% Kurds, and so you have this this kind of I don't know, a kind of cultural nationalism, which so you can't entirely blame religion for
The
this.
entwining between culture and religion is the biggest dilemma we are facing today. And to change that, we need to work all together with the help of international community to change that culture. If we want to live in peace, all of us, and a better future, we have to look back at these cultural and religious issues. We have to reform education system in all curriculum that is connected with religion, whatever religion it is. We have to bring new values that is not written, that could serve all of us. I believe that the Human Rights Convention is the best thing to follow and to work on. I'll give you an example, William. Last year, exactly on the 17th of October, I was a guest at BBC Arabic. And I wonder if that was the reason they stopped inviting me or what. Okay. I was invited to speak about human trafficking. And of course, I spoke about the normal thing, which we talk about, human trafficking and violation of women's rights and whatever it is. The normal thing. Immediately, the presenter went to Yemen. And there was a guy from Yemen who was saying that, who said in that episode that today in the 21st century there is a market, I cannot remember exactly, weekly or monthly market, where they sell slaves and concubines in the 21st century. Can you imagine this kind of how could we?
Well, we have slave brides coming out of in the Syrian refugee camps where people, I mean, they're tragic situations.
Of course, it is a tragic situation. But the question is, when the presenter asked me, is this culturally? I had to say the truth. This is not just cultural. It's the combination culture and religion. Because in the religion, it allows man to sleep with his slave. It allows man to marry more than one wife.
I mean, this is a flaw with many religions.
Exactly.
And Christianity places the man first, the woman second, and makes it very clear.
Well, it's time for a reform. It's time for looking back at these things. We are in an era where I am not less of a human being than you or my son or my husband or any man. Okay?
So you believe in a secular state. You think that state organizations, including education, should be secular, and that there is a role for religion. I mean, you're not against religion per se.
No, I am not against any religion, and I respect all of them. But I am looking ahead and seeing what will be best for all of us. Let me tell you something. Basira, in particular, is an Arabic word that stands for wisdom and humanity, that will serve all of us. And in this era, we need that wisdom and we need that humanity, to live together in an open world. You see, this is where I know that a lot of people may not like what I am saying, and they will curse me. God knows. Yes, but we have to look at our common humanity. We have to accept the other and tolerate him. I mean, just today, for instance, where I am watching on television the decision of the Catholic Church headed by the Pope, saying that anyone, not recognizing the biological relation between the gays and others, but at least it says we have to respect his choice because we respect his dignity. At the same time, I see a big thing in Egypt about atheists, young men who turn to atheism. They would represent probably less than one. Exactly.
In the numbers
exactly.
Of young men.
Why are we wasting our effort? Okay, in talking about these while we have other more important issues to deal with. And not only this, don't we believe in the ayat which says that la ikraha fi din, there is no compulsion in the religion, and the ayat that says من
Morality.
شاء فليؤمن من شاء فليكفر. That who wants to believe he is free, and that who wants to disbelieve, again, he is free. So why are we contradicting each other?
Yes, and morality
Exactly.
essentially is not religious. I mean, the
Absolutely.
basic issues of morality, love, selflessness, you know, the absolute principles which most of us would believe in are
Of
not
course.
transcend religion. They don't belong to one religion or another religion.
Absolutely.
Or,
It should be the light coming from all religions. It should be the only thing that push us for a better future, rather than taking negative aspects of any of them. We need to rise above all of these differentiation and separation
because
and segregation.
society is retrograde, even here in the West. I mean, or particularly here in the West, perhaps. Almost more so than the middle. Tony Blair introduced for the first time faith schools for all religions here in the UK, and moved away from integration to multiculturalism, which has driven our society.
But again,
apart.
what he has done is completely wrong.
Yeah.
It's completely wrong.
It's
I don't
certainly-
want to segregate my son in an Islamic school. I want a school that talks about moral values, common moral values,
is-
much more than, you know.
It is actually
anyway.
very disturbing, because you look
Yeah.
since Blair, we have a situation where children. And my wife was telling me of this one instance. There was an instance where children in a primary school, we're talking children of 6, 7 years old, were asked as they came to school, "Are you Christian? Are you Muslim?" So that they could segregate them for.
And how could
a
you
school
label
assembly.
how could
I
you
know,
label
I
young
know.
kids? What
It's,
kind of message you are giving them?
It's a disgrace. Our
Absolutely.
society has been fractured
Absolutely.
by Mr. Blair's approach, I think.
Yeah.
A major retrograde step in Britain, and we see this now because we do see some young Muslims from the Birmingham and so on, Manchester, disaffected and feeling frustrated because they are not part of, they're not being integrated into society, and they feel
Isolated.
yeah, and then
yeah.
then we get this issue of British recruits for organisations like ISIS.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It is a major problem.
Yeah.
So but how we redress this, how we get, because we do want freedom for religion, for all religions.
Absolutely.
But yes, it's difficult in the world we're looking at, which is becoming more and more polarized, really.
Well, we have to make a U-turn. It's painful, but we have to make it. Otherwise, I mean, it saddens me what I hear and see in British government sometimes, and the level of tolerance they are trying to bend right, left, and center. And it's about time that we say no. It is one law for everybody. It is a secular country, and give them the choice. And not that I want them to go back, because it's not fair. They are just as much citizens as I am. But again, it's a fault of the British government right from the beginning, not putting all of these people through a rehabilitation, or let's say an introduction to Western culture. I'll give you an example. I used to be under the impression that the bar in every single corner, it's for people to go and drink and make fool of themselves, and how horrible. And that is part of the culture. Until I realized that a bar is a social gathering for people to get together, to discuss issues, to have a little bit of fun, because it's a productive society. A man and a woman goes 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, comes back at 5. So you just want to connect with your community and get to know, and you are free to take a beer, a wine, or a coffee. So this is a very important aspect of British culture, which should be known, should be explained. Again, a woman having the right of choice. She is free whatever she wants to do with herself. But yet again, I mean, I don't think anybody would like a woman walking in the street naked. No, they would not. Not even English
Certainly
or
not a
British.
man.
Yes. No.
Yes,
This is what
exactly.
this is the moral aspect which British community or British society stand against. But yet again, we don't see, except that look at women, how they are free and how they are making, you know.
Yes,
So
yes.
we need to look back at these things.
Yes, we need to Yeah, we do need to recognise it, and the need for equality. Is equality the right word? Is that what you are seeking between men and women? Is that the correct term?
No, I'm looking for protection for women, equality and protection. Like, for instance, a woman, I'll give you an example. A woman married for 20 years, okay, to some person. At the age of course, and by choice, she stayed home to raise the children and give them all her attention. In the Middle East, it could be a man decide to marry again another wife or something, as per what he is allowed. And then what about this woman? Or in a court of law where she seeks divorce, what she gets out of that marriage after 20 years of slaving to give him life, she gets out of a belated dowry that is, that is diminishing with the rate of inflation. It's not adequate to protect her dignity and her right. She has not been a working person,
Yes. Yes.
So take these kind of examples and try to show them. In a court of law in Western society, there is this separation, and you take half of what you have accumulated during that time, which is fair enough to protect her dignity and both dignity. Okay, take it in the Middle East again in a case of custody, where a woman has to give back her children to her husband when they reach the age of 7. Okay, first of all, she stays with taking care of the children for 7 years, during which she is not allowed to get married. And if she gets married, then he has the right to take his children, her or their children. Okay?
In instances of divorce, we're talking
Exactly,
about.
in a case of divorce. He takes the children and leave them for another woman who God knows how she is going to take care of them. Okay, so she loses her youth staying. She is with a belated dowry that is next to zero. Her chances of getting back to the work is next to zero, if diminishes. We have to take, let's not fool ourselves. In today's world, the financial aspect is a very important aspect in our lives. I cannot live on moralities only. I cannot live on a kind of painkillers or
But in some senses, the society in the Middle East is more protective of women. I mean, you talk about women may not be exploited. They're exploited in a different way here, where you get certainly sexual and moral pressures on women, because we live in a society where males are quite predatory, and there is not so much protection for a young girl in that situation.
There is a protection. There is a system that protects women. Okay, it's not a perfect society, number one. Nobody is perfect. We are all a human being. But at least in the case, I'll give you an example. In a case, because they always say, for instance, in the case of underage marriage, and they always, in the Arab world, they defend that it is the right. It is a right for a man to marry, and whatever.
I'm not sure all Arabs would think.
Most of them, and there is so many circumcision is around the law that they marry a young girl at the age of 13 and 14. And when you argue with them, they say, well, it happens in the West. The girl go and have a child at the age of 13, which does happen. All right. The difference is that she is not forced for marriage as per the Middle Eastern woman. There is a society, a system that protects her after giving birth. At least, number one, she can go back to school, all right, to empower her.
What we really want to see then is a fair society as well as a just society, a society in which women have the same rights as men, a society in which an equal value is placed on men and women, on the young and the old, and on people of all religions and people of no religion.
And that's why they call me Ahlam. it means I'm dreaming.
Well, I hope not. I hope the world you dream of will become the world
I sincerely
that we live
hope
in.
so. I sincerely hope so. If the West, if most of the world have accepted this reality of our differences and they can coexist, we might as well. I mean, if we claim that it is in our religion and it is in our culture, then we have to go through the same process and of separation of state and religion and move forward, because at the moment we are not only endangering the world around us, we are endangering ourselves in the region.
That's absolutely true. And if only we placed an equal value on each other and on people of
Absolutely.
different religions, different cultures, and
Absolutely.
valued everyone in the same way, then there would be no war.
I hope so. I sincerely hope, but unfortunately, we will always have some conflict of the other, and it is up to us as a human being how to deal with it and how to move forward, and try not to let anything stand between us and our common humanity.
Well, thank you, Ahlam, so much.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Pleasure.
We were going to actually include a little moment in this discussion to share some thoughts about a book. And there was one we've chosen, actually, that is here. Tell me about this author, Ala Aswani, is it?
Yes, Ala Eddin al-Aswani. Ala is one of the best writers in the Middle East, and actually this has been turned into a film. He is a doctor, he's a dentist by profession, but his care and his concern about what's happening in Egypt made him rise. He has a weekly or monthly column, I'm not sure, in Ash-Shuruq or Masriyin, I can't remember. But the most important thing about this book, it was the first time that somebody dared to write about the hidden side of the Egyptian society. He touched in it homosexuals, he touched how women, he touched so many aspects of the society that lots of people could not believe that it does exist. End of the day, we are all human. We are not different than any other society. We have the good, bad, and ugly. The only difference is that we don't have the freedom and we don't have democracy. And that's why, in fact, one of the best actors in the film, where it was, people turned totally against him because he acted the homosexual person in that film. I would never forget that. It's an amazing novel for him, and he always speaks about society change, hoping for the best. But the most unfortunate thing that he sided with the Muslim brothers when they came to power. And he is still, well, it's a mistake. Well, we all were fooled. I mean, a lot of people were fooled, not me, I knew, because I don't want any religion to interfere in my freedom. And unfortunately, we were fooled at that time.
But so the Yacubian building, it's called by Ala Aswani.
Yeah.
And available in English and in Arabic.
Yes, I read it in Arabic actually, and I watched the film in English. I watched it more than once. Every time you watch it, something else come up. It's like opening a can of worms, really.
Oh, bless you.
You know, in the things that is hidden in the society, and we refuse to acknowledge it or deal with it or open it or give people freedom. All of these things are missing in our communities, unfortunately, and we have to conform according to this society, not according to what we really are or what we want, or in a positive way to enrich our societies.
Oh, bless you. Ahlam Akram, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a most pleasure. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.